So I am Gary from Volutone. Many of you know me on the West Coast, but I represent all of the Snap AV locals, okay? The local pro stores. And what is that? That is all of the distribution that they have bought over the last couple of years. And that includes AllNet, that includes CPD, Custom Plus up north. It includes MRI back east and Volutone. We are all under one roof. We all carry different products, but for the most part, all the same. We are here for Parasound, and this is absolutely a universal product for us all right now. We're really excited. Today's lesson or webinar, if you will, is all introductory of this awesome product. I have got one of the best men in the business here with me today. We have all been trained by Joe over the last few weeks internally to get up to speed for this product to arrive, to be able to support that product for you out there doing bids, getting this product, this awesome product out into people's homes or businesses. Let's have this discussion real quick. I'm recording this right now. You're gonna get an email from me later on tonight with Joe's presentation and my recording, okay? So look for an email so you don't have to take pictures of the screen. It'll come to you. And no, I won't talk about COVID. I won't, I promise. I'm just gonna say be safe out there. Thank you for joining me. We do this every week. I wanna see you guys next week for my Logitech webinar. And any suggestions you have, throw them my way. Use the Q&A. We'll be monitoring this over the next hour. And that's about it from all of us. Thank you so much. Joe, step it up, buddy. It's all you.
Gary, thank you so much. I appreciate you guys giving us this opportunity. And thanks to each and every one of you who are on this presentation today, because obviously you are interested enough to want to hear what we have to say. I think we really do bring something unique to the table here with this integration now of Snap AV and Parasound. And I think you'll enjoy it, actually. I think you'll have a lot of fun finding out just how good these products can sound. And who knows, it may stimulate your own interest in just playing some more of your old CDs and records and streaming and so forth. Today, we're agenda-wise going to talk a little bit about the Parasound brand story. We've been doing value since 1981, so the company is not new to this whole thing. We're real veterans at it. And as Gary says, we've built a bit of a brand name. We'll talk a little about why did Parasound and Snap AV decide to partner. We'll talk about Halo, which is our upper end product. We have actually 4 different product lines, Halo being the best of them, and that's really the lion's share of our business. A good significant portion of our business every year is Halo. We will talk about distributing Halo being unique to Snap AV, and that part I want to talk about right now, actually. You know, it was very important for us to do business with the right integrators, not the wrong integrators. And when we saw just how thorough Snap is at being able to track all the products that are sold, we realized, oh, this is a chance to partner with somebody who has a lot of customers, but who, if the product is going into the wrong hands, can help us find that out and just stop it. So we haven't been distributing, we've been distributing before to some extent, but we haven't been distributing the Halo product line. And so that's unique to Snap. We have 3 other product lines though, that because you got
Joe, just lost audio. Joe, just lost audio. Joe. Hang on, everybody. Let me get back with Joe. Lost audio, Joe. And I could see that you're muted on your icon there, but let's try that again.
Unmuted by host. Can
there
you
you
hear
go.
me yet? You can hear me now?
Yep. I'll keep an eye on this so you don't drop out, but let's keep going.
Sounds good. Yeah, so just talking a little bit about how Bob, who is our chief engineer, still has an integration business and still stays in touch with the integration community because of that. So Gary, I actually built in now to the second slide, sound and video check, and it's interesting that we did have the audio drop out, but sounds like we're doing A-OK now, so that's a wonderful thing. When I say value engineered products since 1981, what we're saying is that Richard Schramm, this fellow on the left, actually founded the company back then. And value engineering really defines what we do. We talked a few moments ago about how that there are manufacturers of electronics who are way up in this kind of a price range, and they don't have more affordable goods. We're not interested in building the most expensive product in a category. We also don't have the least expensive product in any category. So we're very interested in offering what we think a lot of your customers really want, and that is high value in the better goods category. So we want to be able to identify a 20 or 30 or $40,000 amplifier that we think sounds great, and have a product that's, maybe a fifth of that money that sounds really close to that performance. So value engineering, I would say, really defines our mission. Or another way to say it is, we want to offer you the high performance level without the high price tag. I also want to talk not only about Richard Schramm here on the left, the founder of the company, but John Curl, this man on the right. John Curl is actually in the Absolute Sound Hall of Fame. And he is, an engineer who has been a partner for us over the last really 3 decades. He's been working with us for quite a long time. We're delighted to have him because he really helps us to develop the best products that we can develop. He's a guy that is not only in the Absolute Sound Hall of Fame, but he helped the Grateful Dead with both recording and concert sound back in the 70s. He worked with the Jefferson Airplane and some other San Francisco-based acts. He's designed products for Mark Levinson and really all kinds of very high-quality people in our industry. Think very highly of Mr. Curl. So we're more than happy to have him as our chief engineer for the Halo product line. And let's take up the issue of, why did Snap AV want to partner with Parasound? Well, part of it, I think, is driven by the fact that you guys really want to be able to offer one solution that takes care of everybody. And once the connections with KEF and with Klipsch, and of course with Triad, that was really the first of them to happen. Once those connections happened, you've got these premium speakers. Is it okay to just put average electronics with them? Well, no. An analogy I think makes sense is, none of us would ever go and look at a Ferrari and decide to buy it, but tell the salesman, first you've got to take off those high-end wheels and tires and put on the most affordable wheels and tires you can. No, the Ferrari wouldn't break or corner or have any of the characteristics that it should, because you've got the wrong match underneath the car. Kind of the same thing with high-end speakers. You need to have an integration between the electronics, the speakers, the sources. The weakest link in the chain is going to define what that chain is capable of. And great sound, I think, comes from great integration. So now Snap AV can offer this one-stop shop of high-quality product. And I think this is really going to be a great partnership for both sides. I love this quote at the end, by the way, about the JC5, our second best amplifier, where it says, like its big brother, the original JC1, the Parasound JC5 is a stunning amplifier. You'll see high quality quotes like that all through what we plan on doing today with this webinar. Everything just fine with the audio and video, Gary? Everything sounding okay to you?
Rolling just fine, bud.
Beautiful, thank you, sir. This is a slide, and I'm going to try, Gary, just kind of let's see if this works out okay. I'm going to put back to full screen, and hopefully this will continue to work. But again, just break in if you can, like you did before, if there's an issue. This is a slide of the JC1, the original, which Stereophile back in 2003 had as their product of the year. And I love Sam Tellig's quote about, before you blow big money on amps that a reviewer recommended but he didn't buy them, check out these because I bought them. And I think Sam still has the JC1s as the reference amplifiers in his system. So we've, for many, many years now, been getting great reviews, and we, of course, plan on continuing that. Next slide. This helps describe a little bit about what we'll talk about today. We'll spend a good chunk of our time on Halo, which, as I said, is really, comprising the strongest part of our business right now. But we will talk about solutions from all three of the other lines: the new classic amplifiers, tremendous bang for the buck and a powerful amplifier. We'll talk about Z Custom, which you as an integrator, sometimes you've got, a bit of space in somebody's den, or a bit of shelf space in the kitchen where you could put some gear where you can't put a traditionally sized set of electronics. Z Custom is our half width product. So it's a good problem solver for custom integrators. And then we'll also talk a little bit about Zone Master, because we have a couple products there that are very popular with integrators. So we've set the stage just a bit. Now let's talk about amplifier basics. So I want to talk about the fact that all amplifiers, when you plug them into the wall, are inherently inefficient. A certain amount of what's coming out of the wall never gets converted into sound that you and I can hear, and instead it gets thrown off as heat. So if we look on the left-hand side of our slide here at a tube amplifier, tube amps operate in Class A sound, and it is the best sound quality oftentimes that you're going to hear. But in some ways, it's also the most inefficient sound quality. A tremendous amount of amplifier power gets thrown off as heat, and it's the lowest watts per dollar. So if you wanted to have a product like the JC5 that we sell for $6,000, which is capable of 400 watts per channel into an 8-ohm load and 1,200 into a 2-ohm load, if it was a tube amplifier, it would be gigantic. It would take up half your living room. Parasound tends to focus instead on what we call Class AB amplifiers, because we want to give you the reliability of solid state with a lot of that sound quality people associate with a good tube amplifier. There also are amplifiers, though, called Class D, and we are starting to introduce some products now. For example, this 200 integrated is a Class D amplifier product. So it's the one that's going to run the coolest of the three. It may not have the same sweet sound quality that you get from a Class AB amplifier like a JC5, but it runs very cool, and you can put it into a rack easily and not worry about it. So hopefully that clears up just some of the basic terminology of amplifiers. Let's ask this question. What are the characteristics of a better amplifier? What does that mean when we say a better amplifier? Well, it starts, I think, number one, with reliability and build quality. This notion that we've introduced already of solid state reliability, but with a tube-like sound. We don't make a single tube amplifier because they just tend not to be as reliable as solid state products. The second characteristic of a better amplifier, we think, is great performance when driving difficult loads. We've all seen a specification that this particular amplifier is capable of 100 watts per channel at 8 ohms. Okay, well, that's measured by an 8 ohm load resistor. Well, that's fine, except that you and I don't listen to 8 ohm load resistors ever. We listen to our favorite loudspeaker. Whatever's the best speaker you and I can find for our budget, that's the one we go with. So, you know, loudspeakers don't present a constant 8 ohm impedance. They're dipping up and down all the time, and sometimes they're dipping as low as 2 ohms. That's a very challenging load for an amplifier. One of the characteristics of better amps is to be able to operate well into very challenging loads like that. And then third, delivering high current. Again, that 100 watts per channel, what does that really translate into in terms of great sound quality? Well, it's kind of up in the air. The key is, can you deliver a lot of current at whatever load that you're operating into? So, yeah, we think that current is a far more important specification, you know, than wattage per dollar. And I love this quote that we got from one of our customers, that the A21 Plus transformed my speakers, made them sound better than I've ever heard them sound. When you bring home a Parasound amplifier, you may be shocked at just how good your speakers really are, because you may not have really heard how good they are. Yeah. So now let's just dig into some specifics about why the Halo amplifiers sound as good as they do. This is a photo of one of our integrated amps, the $3,000 Halo Hint 6. You will notice this great big transformer in the product. All of our amplifiers pretty much have very substantial transformers, because it's the only way we know to store enough current to be able to deliver when your speakers are really demanding it. They've all got not only massive power supplies, but great big heatsink sections, because these amplifiers won't produce heat like a tube amp, but they do produce some heat. So we need to be able to get rid of that, because you want to have a reliably running product. Pardon me. What we're able to achieve here with the way we design amplifiers is that we're biasing our amps a little bit higher, so that we can give you more of that Class A sound up to, you know, really some fairly substantially loud levels before switching from Class A to Class B. okay? And class B, of course, is where you can get that great big crescendo in the orchestra, or that movie, soundtrack has a tremendous amount of input at that point. So the key here is that we're not simply building amplifiers that sound great when you turn them up. That's not it at all. Sometimes people associate, oh, I would get a big amplifier if I want to listen really loud. In fact, that's one of the keys, but it's really important for us to say that at normal listening levels, you get better transparency, greater clarity from a really well-built amplifier. So you get more musical enjoyment, really loud or soft. Here's something that as an integrator, I want you to really think about, because every home theater receiver, whether it's a Sony or a Marantz or Denon or whatever it is, I would say that your best seller probably is Yamaha. Every home theater receiver has an Achilles heel. And let's talk a little bit about what that is. I want to recommend to you a sales strategy, a success strategy that you can use whenever the subject of a home theater comes up. Ask the customer, which multi-channel amp are you planning on using? Because a lot of times they'll get the reaction of, well, what do you mean by that? This receiver has a whole lot of channels of amplification within it. Why would I need to add a separate amplifier? But every home theater receiver can only dedicate so much room to the amplification part. And I want to show you this next slide to demonstrate what I'm talking about. So on the left, we have a very popular home theater receiver from a very good brand that I sold for many years. When you look at all the digital engineering that has to go into a home theater receiver, because remember that there are algorithms that are written to do all that tracking so that you can see, and hear the horses on the screen are going from left to right. You hear it that way. Or you hear the jet going over your head as the plane, goes from front to back. You truly hear it that way. There's a tremendous amount of engineering that's required to pull that off. We as Parasound don't do that. We don't do the digital engineering part. But you can now see right away as you look on the right-hand side of the screen at this A21 Plus and the massive power transformer and these huge caps, all these output devices, and of course the heat sinks that go along with and are connected to the output devices. There's absolutely no way you could cram all of that technology into a home theater receiver. It would never fit. So you can really offer your customers, I think, one of the best values that a customer could see. Think about what that $15,000 or $20,000 stack of home theater electronics, how great that would sound. And if they have the budget for it, sell them that. But if they don't, think about taking a $1,500 Yamaha receiver and then one of our home theater amplifiers and giving the customer the best of both worlds. Because now you just gave them all the HDMI engineering, the digital engineering they need to make, all the sound and video what it should be. And you've added this brute force, sweet sounding power that's really going to give them the kind of performance that they want. So with that idea in place now, that every time you sell a home theater receiver, ask what home theater amplifier will you also choose. Let's take a look at the 3 home theater amps we have. Plus, of course, any of our 2-channel amps can also be integrated in, depending on how many channels you need, 5, 7, 9, 11, and so forth. This is the A51. It's our best multi-channel amp. It's a THX Ultra 2 certified product at $5,000 retail. It is an absolute beast, as you can tell by looking on the right-hand side here, where we've got, literally all 5 amplifier sections, 1, 2, 3 for the center channel, 4 and 5 all lined up. Again, with a massive toroidal transformer in it. This thing is capable of delivering 250 watts into an 8-ohm load with loads of current. And you can see by this quote from a Stereophile Guide to Home Theater, radiated sweetness and light with music, movies, thunder and lightning. And very few amplifiers are really capable of doing both. So again, this and let's say a $1,500 Yamaha receiver, it's a $6,500 package that will come very close, to the performance of some sets of electronics that are 2 and 3 times the money. But maybe that's a little rich for the customer's blood. Well, how many times have you guys done an install where the left, center, and right speakers were considerably upgraded, but then you used lesser expensive, maybe in ceiling and in wall for the rear channels or the side channels? Well, in that case, you could drop the customer's investment by $1,500 by getting the A31. So the A51 was a 5-channel amp. This A31 we're now looking at is the exact same product, but it's 3 channels of amplification instead of 5. So, you pair that with a Yamaha home theater receiver and you're really getting the best of both worlds. But this time, obviously, with a $1,500 receiver, you'd be right under $5,000. Still too rich for the customer's blood? No problem. Let's take a look at a Halo A52 Plus. So this time we're back to 5 channels of amplification, right? But this time it's at 180 watts into an 8-ohm load. So, you're still getting high power, you're still getting those benefits of great bass and better dynamics than you would get just using the home theater receivers amplifiers. Pardon me. But you've reduced the customer's level of investment. This time you're at $4,500, again, with a $1,500 Yamaha receiver. So we want to go ahead and unmute some microphones, see if you guys have questions, and let me just summarize what we've talked about so far. The first is that Parasound's, really excellence in manufacturing electronics is now approaching our 5th decade. It spans 4 decades so far. You guys have Triad, who make wonderful products. I rep those when I was at Tandem and AllNet. You have Kef and Klipsch. Both of them are speaker brands I like a lot. You've now got the right companion in terms of electronics. What we offer at Parasound is solid state reliability with tube-like sonic performance. And we've kind of, opened up hopefully a new channel of performance for your customers and revenue for you by introducing this question about always recommending an outboard amplifier to go along with the home theater receiver. You may not get it, but you'll miss 100% of the shots you never take. Gary, can you see any questions or anything that you'd like to interject?
Yeah, we've got some interaction. Check this out with me on the Q&A
Great.
portion. The first one that came through was from CJ McKinley. You see that one?
I don't, but I don't have those up yet.
Okay.
Go ahead and read it if you can.
He's running 3 pairs of speakers to a 2125 volt 2 amp, 2 pairs on A. Does that make sense? Sorry, that's the question though.
Okay. Well, that's a 2-channel amp, of course, not a 3-channel amp like the A31 that we just talked about. So it can work, but in the A31, you'd actually be getting an individual channel for left, right, and center. So I'm not sure exactly how the what the system that the 2125 is in.
CJ also had said 2 pairs on a 1 pair on B ? So CJ, if you want more definitive answer, keep hitting me with some more details there, and we'll get that answered for you.
Yeah, CJ, if you want to put all the details in there, you can also just send me an email at sales@parasound.com, and I'll be happy to answer it this afternoon. Other questions?
Rick Murphy saying he has to drop off, but he's saying great job. Hey, you haven't even finished this yet. There's no accolades yet. All right, let's go over to the webinar chat. I do have some questions in there.
Cool.
Let's see. Jeff Kaplan is talking about he's a high-end dealer, sold Parasound, valued engineering. I think that's somebody that you might know.
Okay.
I'm actually listening to this over a 2000 era Zamp and preamp on a set of Bose Acoustic Mass 5s from the mid 90s. What about a subwoofer with a 51 or a 3-1?
Okay, so the subwoofer is a great idea. Those 2 amplifiers really are pure power amplifiers, so it's more the preamp where you want to be able to hook in your subwoofer. We don't on those amplifiers have subwoofer outs, but we do actually on a number of our preamps and integrated amps, and we'll talk about that as the seminar goes on. So it might be a time to upgrade the. You've got some vintage '90s gear there. It might be time to upgrade a little bit, especially now that you can buy Parasound at the right price.
Right. Yeah. Good point there.
Yeah.
CJ was saying not surround sound, just 3 pairs of 8-ohm speakers on that amp. Is that okay? 2 pairs on A and on B.
So CJ, if your real question is it 2-ohm stable? Yes, 2125 is 2-ohm stable. So hopefully that answers for you. All
right. That brings us up to date. Let's keep going.
Cool. Sounds great. So just to show you, and again, Gary, you can hear me just fine. Everything's kosher.
All good.
Beautiful. You can see here on the left-hand side, this is that JC1 that we got Stereophile Product of the Year in 2003. And you can see what a cleanly laid out amplifier it is. But you can also see in the current JC1 Plus how we really went overboard introducing all kinds of new technology to be able to give substantially better performance. We just introduced it earlier this year, and this is the finest amplifier that Parasound has ever built, actually. So let's dig a little deeper into that flagship product for us so we can show you not only what is in it, but as we start to move down through the rest of the Halo brand, you'll see that as a salesperson, this is really a pretty easy line to sell because you've got this very consistent technology story. So let's just start with we begin in a JC1 Plus, which by the way is that's an $84.95 retail mono block. So obviously $16,990 for the pair. It's not an inexpensive product at all, but we have seen it compete very successfully against amplifiers that are 2 and 3 times the money. So even at that level, we think it's a great value. But let's take a look at the input stage here. We have a massive toroidal transformer for a JC1 Plus that doesn't do anything at the input stage. We've got a separate transformer just for the input stage. Why? Well, it's really simple. This R-core transformer at the input stage makes absolutely sure that we're delivering a pristine signal to the output stage. In other words, distortion that gets introduced at the input stage can never be fixed once you get downstream from it. So we call this a load invariant input stage. It doesn't matter what's happening at the output. Even if you're really pounding away with volume, we're not drawing away from the ability of the amplifier to give you a pristine input stage, presenting the output stage with the cleanest possible signal. So you keep noise down to a minimum even when you're just pounding away. And here's another view of the JC1 Plus with this stump puller power transformer. I mean, this thing weighs 30 pounds. And you see the 6 custom capacitors that we use. We think these are the finest sounding caps in the marketplace, and no one else uses them. The company who builds these for us builds them exclusively for us. Why do we go to such great lengths with all these technologies? Well, it's really simple. If you're using a great loudspeaker, it probably is presenting a very difficult impedance, a very difficult challenge, a difficult load to the amp. This amplifier is capable of 180 amps of peak current. That's massive. The original JC1 that got product of the year was only capable of 135. So this amplifier, in a sense, makes it so that your speaker selection is limitless. You can pull any speaker in the marketplace and be very comfortable that a JC1 Plus will run it successfully. Now, before we do that trickle down thing I talked about, I want to talk about 2 preamplifiers, 2-channel, obviously, preamplifiers. Our better one is this one, the JC2BP, that retails for $4,500. And again, even at that money, we think it's an outstanding value because of what reviewers and our customers are saying about how it performs against far more expensive 2-channel preamps. Stereophile called this perhaps the finest solid state line stage I've ever heard. It has very low noise floor. It's literally 116 dB noise floor, which makes it, we think, still to this day, the quietest preamplifier in the marketplace. And it's remarkable the detail you hear once you've got a truly quiet background, okay? Love this quote again about all a price that will be within the reach of real world audiophiles. So the reviews on that one are extremely strong. But not everybody who wants 2-channel will be able to afford a $4,500 2-channel preamp. So we sell lots and lots of the Halo P6 every year. This is a 2.1 channel preamp with a DAC. So now when I say 2.1 channel, back to that question earlier about adding subwoofers, when you take a look at the back panel of this, you'll immediately realize that you can do bass management with subwoofers and control it. Lots of times people will invest in a high quality bookshelf speaker, and later on, they'd like to get the bass that they could have gotten in a more expensive tower, but they couldn't afford. Now you can add back in the subwoofers. Very high quality ESS Sabre 32 reference DAC. So just plug in your favorite streaming device and away you go. Very high quality onboard phono preamp. We talked about the bass management a little bit, and has a very nice sounding headphone amp in it as well. By the way, the Halo products are available from us in either silver or black. So please remember to specify with your salesperson at Voluitone or at Snap, whether you want silver or black when you're making the purchase order. Only the Halo products, by the way, are available in silver and black, and not all Halo either. The two channel, try it again. The two 5-channel amps and the one 3-channel amp that we saw, those are available in black only. We're assuming that they're always going to go in a rack. Okay, now let's start taking a look at some of as we start stepping down in performance from that JC1 Plus. Pardon me, this is a Halo JC5. It retails for $6,000. It's a stereo amp now, not a pair of mono blocks like the JC5. It got Home Theater Review's Best of 2018 award. It's that good of a product. And I think when you hear it, you'll realize what a remarkable amplifier it really is. But now let's take a look at some of the same things that we saw in JC1 Plus. So the input stage and driver stage has its own separate power supply. The output stage has its own separate power supply. It's capable of 12 watts per channel in pure Class A performance before it switches over to Class B. So again, you've got that sweet, wonderful to listen to sound quality, whether you're listening at soft levels or even going up to louder levels. And then at the loudness levels, you've got all the power reserve of a Class B amplifier. So, worth every penny. Sound delighted me in ways that few other components ever have, was Soundstage's comment. If $6,000 is still too rich for your customer's blood for their 2-channel, check out the A21 Plus. This one is half the money at $3,000 retail, $2,995. But again, lots of customers really seem to feel that this is the least expensive true audiophile amplifier in the marketplace, because for $3,000, look at what you get. It's 300 watts per channel into a 2-ohm load. Again, incredibly stable. Into an 8-ohm load. Again, incredibly stable into a 2-ohm load. And we're doing the same thing as we did before with, separate power supply for the input stage to keep that as pristine as we can possibly keep it. So it's a load invariant input stage as well. As a salesperson, anytime you're selling a brand that has that consistent technology approach where we're using the same technologies as we move down and down, further down into the line, that's really beneficial because you only have to remember one set of stories to sell the entire brand. Unparalleled value and amplifier performance. A21 Plus is exceptional, provided an awe-striking feel. What if that's still too rich for your blood? Well, let's take a look at this A23 Plus and look at how similar in layout this amplifier is to its much more costly big brothers. It doesn't give you the same level of performance you'd get from a JC1 Plus, but look at how it's an almost identical layout in terms of the output stages being directly connected to the heat sinks and the great big power transformer. This is $14.95 for an amplifier that can deliver 240 watts into a 4-ohm load. With that exact same type of approach, that again, that warm tube-like sound, but with solid state reliability. So yeah, absolutely able to do the same kind of performance story at lots and lots of different price points. So as we're starting to wrap up the Halo part of this, let's just show you a little bit about the back panel. We tend to do both balanced and regular RCA connectors. If you have the opportunity with your cable vendor to do balanced connections, we always recommend that. It's the quietest signal. It will, at least in theory, give you and many of us feel in practice, it will give you a greater sense of listening to what was really on the recording. Heavy duty speaker outputs. I want to especially alert you to this left-hand side of the amplifier where it says turn on options. This is really important because it's the #1 phone call we get if something is going wrong. None of us likes those phone calls, but I want to try to help empower you to be able to stop that phone call, before it gets out of hand. You have 3 options here in terms of turning the amplifier on. Straight manual, so that's where you press the power button on the front panel, but you've also got the ability to automatically switch the amplifier on with either audio or 12-volt trigger. And yes, we do pack a 12-volt trigger cable into the box. Of course, all of you guys, every integrator knows that one touch and all the magic happens is what customers love about what you do for them. But please know that if you are using 12-volt trigger or audio turn on, it disables the front panel power switch. So if the customer calls in a panic and says, I'm pressing my amplifier and nothing's coming on, it won't even turn on, I don't even see the lights, just ask him, hey, is it actually hooked up in 12-volt trigger or audio mode? In fact, you'll probably know this because you did the installation. If it is, that disables the manual switch on the front panel, because we don't want Gladys's cleaning service to, accidentally turn the amplifier on or off. This is Halo Hint 6. This is the P6 preamp we saw a moment ago, plus that A23 amp that we just looked at, all in one chassis. And we do have a lot of customers nowadays buying our integrated amplifiers, because there are customers who just want to keep it as simple as they can possibly keep it. Well, if you put the power amp and the preamp and the DAC and so forth, you put all those things into one chassis, now you start hooking up sources and speakers, and away you go. So don't forget about the Hint 6 as possibly, the kind of thing that you might start putting into bids on a regular basis, and even what you yourself might want for your own listening. So Gary, we'll ask you to again unmute the microphone so people can ask. Let's just review what we've seen so far. In the Halo brand, we're trying to make top-down selling as easy as we can make it. We're using a similar design topology all throughout the Halo series, and we think that Halo is really the best value for the money in the marketplace in electronics. Distribution of these products, again, exclusive to Snap. And remember, if you don't give the customer a bid that's actually more money than he thought he wanted to spend. So in other words, prepare the bid at roughly the budget. My suggestion, prepare the bid at roughly the budget that you and he talked about, but give him a better bid as well. Let him know that he can buy better performance, because in a lot of times, if you don't ask, you don't get, and you may not get that better bid that you just handed him, but you may wind up money-wise and performance-wise somewhere in between the bid that he said fit his budget and the bid that you just gave him, which is obviously good for you and good for him. Questions, Gary?
Not so far, but a good testimonial from Kevin. I've been living with the A23 Plus for a few months now, worth every penny. That means you're doing something right.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. Fantastic. Thank you, Kevin. Okay, well, we will continue on. Just showing you our new product for the fall of 2021. We hope we just have to figure out how to make a 99 pack that you can actually put into your car. As soon as we get that licked, though, we'll be sure to introduce this one. I love how they put the Pabst logo right next to limited edition family pack. Guess the guy's got a big family. I do want to talk very briefly. We have 4 phono preamps of really high quality. Many integrators never bother to talk about turntables, but I want to show you some statistics that might blow your mind. One is that back in 2007 to 2008, vinyl sales in the United States doubled, but it was still only 2 million records sold. In 2018, almost 17 million records were sold in this country. And lots of customers out there still own a turntable. They still own, rows of records that they never bothered to get rid of. We have fantastic phono preamp performance at 4 price points, including $199. So if your customers are saying, hey, I'd like to be able to listen to these old records, keep Parasound and really high quality phono preamps in mind. This turntable, this project turntable, was actually the #1 selling product for the online retailer Audio Advisor in Michigan last month. So people are buying turntables, people are buying records, and you're in a position to give them a great phono preamp for whatever might be their budget. Let's talk a little bit about the Zone Master series. This is the Zone Master 12. It's a 12-channel, 24 speaker. So in other words, you can do a pair of speakers on each one of the channels, because it is, after all, a 2-ohm stable amplifier. Now this distribution amplifier is probably more money than whatever you've been typically selling, but I can tell you that there are some bids where money is not really the bottom line. The customer really wants the best performance that he can get for his money. At $24.95, this is not outrageously priced, and boy, does it sound good. Like I said, it's stable into a 2-ohm load. It's a Class AB input stage combined with a Class D output stage. So the sound quality is wonderful, and yet it runs very cool. Of course, we're talking about 6 12-volt trigger inputs, so one per zone. If the couple puts their kids to bed and then they head up to their own bedroom later on, they can turn on the system just in that room, and of course, only that channel turns on, or that zone turns on. But one of the cool things we've done in this amplifier that our customers seem to love is that we made zones, channels 1 and 2, or zone 1, is 120 watts per channel, so twice the amount of power on tap as what you would have, the 60 watts per channel in the other 10 channels. So this is very powerful for that one particular zone. Maybe it's the outdoor speaker zone, or maybe it's a large basement where you've just got a lot more square footage to work with and you really want double the power into that particular zone. And this is another product in the Zone Master series that is very popular with custom guys. This is our ZM2350. So it's a 2-channel amp with subwoofer crossover network in it. It's not all that expensive at $12.95 for what you're getting, because this is a 350 watts into 8 ohm and 600 watts into a 4 ohm load amplifier. It is an absolute beast. A lot of the guys that are, again, doing either a big outdoor system, or they're doing some commercial work, maybe with a YMCA or other gym like that, or perhaps in a church, what you really need is a really beefy power amp to drive a nice pair of speakers. This is that. And it's got all the subwoofer connection ability too. So you've got, stereo or mono or sub. You can just change that output with the flip of a switch. You also, though, if you're selling this with speakers that are, physically more compact, maybe a really high quality outdoor speaker that isn't going to be able to reproduce anything below 30 cycles or below 80 cycles anyway, you actually can switch in the high pass filter and take care of that pair of speakers as well. Rack mount kit is included with this one. With many of our amplifiers, the rack kit is so beefy that it's pretty costly, and so we wind up packaging it separately rather than making you pay for it. Some of you guys may have been, kind of wanting for some time now to do a 2-channel system in your own home, but you don't want to break the bank. The next 2 products, the 200 pre and the 200 integrated, are outstanding values for the money. So this one's the 200 pre. It's a very fully functional preamp. It's only $8.95 at retail, so not a lot of money, but with tremendous sonic performance. My ears told me the same thing about the sound. Incredible, especially for the price. And yet look how full featured it is. You've got 3 analog inputs. One of them can be a phono preamp input or not. It's totally up to you. If you want to switch it back to being a regular auxiliary input, you can do that. You do have home theater bypass offered here. Here's the output stage over here. You've got 3 digital inputs, obviously optical, coax, and USB. Okay. Very nice sounding DAC, the same DAC that we had used in our Halo P5 preamp, the one that predated the P6. So it's a wonderful sounding DAC inside it. Again, very high quality headphone amp. We've even done something with the aux input on so many of our preamps and integrated amps, where the aux input has a 12 decibel boost built in. What's the reason? Well, because all kinds of customers from 10-year-olds nowadays to 75-year-olds, all kinds of people are walking around with a smartphone in their pocket that's all loaded up with their favorite music. But these guys were never intended to be audio devices. So with a 12 dB boost at the aux input, you really can help the customer get the best sound quality they can out of the music that's loaded into their smartphone. So that's a wonderful feature there. This is $8.95, and if you want that exact same product with all that functionality, along with 110 watt per channel power amp into an 8 ohm load or a 4 ohm load, this new Classic 200 integrated is a terrific value. It's $11.95, and it's a tremendous amount of product for the money. So you can see, again, just every single feature that we talked about before, the high pass crossover for that maybe bookshelf pair of speakers that you want to protect their woofers. And you can select where you want that crossover point to be. The 3 digital inputs. This one actually does offer RS-232 as well as IR options in terms of control. 12-volt trigger, of course, packed in the box. But you see over here with the very beefy speaker binding posts, 5-way binding posts, that this one is actually an integrated amp, and it's set up with 110 watt per channel power amp in it. frankly, that's all that a lot of people will ever really need. And it's all in this very space-saving package at 1 rack space high. Okay, so now let's start getting into some of our power amps that are not in the Halo series. Every year we sell loads of this new Classic 275 at just $600 retail, $595. It's very affordable, but again, very powerful for something that's only 1 rack space high. It's a 90 watt per channel into an 8 ohm load with 150 watts into the 4 ohm load. It is in fact 2 ohm stable, so you can run a really difficult load with this amplifier. Has lots of those kind of features we were talking about a few moments ago with high pass filter options at off or 20 cycles or 40 cycles. Same kind of turn on options that we've discussed before. And you can loop out. So if what you really need is a series of these amplifiers for an installation, you can keep looping because they're buffered loops. And maybe you like that idea, but you want something that's just a little bit more powerful. So we've already heard on this call mentioned the new Classic 2125 version 2. This one is at $795, just shy of the $800 retail price point. This time around, it's 150 watts into a 8 ohm load and 2.25 into the 4 ohm load. So a very, very powerful amplifier that just sounds great. It's interesting, by the way, this quote from Hi-Fi Voice, superb control of bass at all volume levels. I think one of the big keys that you're going to notice when you start selling Parasound amps and installing them, and again, even putting Parasound in your own home system, is how much tighter the bass can sound when you've got a really well-built amplifier behind it. But maybe that's not quite the performance that your customer wants. Well, what about a 2250? This one at $1395. Again, it's THX Ultra 2 certified and is capable of 400 watts into either a 4 ohm or even a 2 ohm load. So it's got the beastly ability to drive even challenging and difficult speaker loads. This time you're getting 45 amps of peak current per channel. This is obviously not the sonic equivalent of a JC1 Plus, but boy, for relatively modest money, this amp is an absolute powerhouse. And I think you'll really enjoy it when you start putting it into your installations. Okay, now to look at the Z Custom series, I'm actually going to end the show here, and I'm going to take us over to the website. So just temporarily here, I'm going to stop screen sharing, and then I'm going to pull up, move down the PowerPoint. I'm going to pull up our website. And now I'm going to engage again screen sharing. So there we go. Gallery view, share screen. Okay, so now it says I'm screen sharing. Gary, can you see my screen and can you hear me okay?
Affirmative. You're good to go.
Beautiful. Thank you, sir. Well, as we start to wrap up, I wanted to show you this next series, but I also wanted to do it in a way that lets you see all the information you can get from our website because it's really pretty compelling. This is the home page, and you'll always see, kind of this rotating every 90 days or so banner of what's on the home page. But if you just click products, that will show you all the different products that we have and any questions you might have about specs or any of that kind of thing. So this is all the models in the Halo series that we've talked about. Here's the Zone Master with that Zone Master 12 and 2350 that we've talked about. Z Custom we'll get to in a minute, and the new Classic products that we just discussed. So now let's go back to Z Custom for a minute because I want to show you how our website works. Let's click on the Z Phono XRM, which for $595 is an incredible value. It'll start once you've clicked on the product by showing you the features. For example, a couple turntables, a moving coil, and a moving magnet phono cartridge. Next to features are the specs. So it gives you all the technical input plus, the weight, even shipping weight and so forth. Next to that, if the product has gotten some nice reviews, we always want to post those so that you've got some reviews you can throw into your bid. But let's click on this last one for support. You can get the owner's manual. You don't have to request it from us. It's right here on our website. So you can take a look at the owner's manual for this product or almost any product that we have, including discontinued products, which I'll show you in a minute. So as we skim down through the owner's manual, if you want to take a look at questions like, for example, You know, how do the connections work? The whole moving coil, moving magnet, I'm not sure. What are the differences between the cartridges and their gain settings? All that kind of thing. Even something as simple after the frequently asked questions as, well, you know, what are the technical specs and all that? Again, it's all on the last page. So you can see that there's a tremendous amount of information available, and even on our discontinued products. So this time, let's click products again. You see all those current products that we just skimmed through, but here's our discontinued products. So if you've got a good customer who has an older Parasound product and you'd like to get an owner's manual, you don't have to order it. Just click, in this case, the HC 1201A, which was last sold almost 20 years ago. Here's not only a look at the features and at the specifications, but you can download the owner's manual for it if you want. So there's plenty of data available for you on the website. Obviously, if you can just figure something out, you know, especially after hours or, you know, that sort of thing, we want to try to make your life easy. Let's go back and take a quick peek at these Z Custom products that we talked about earlier. Again, these are half rack width sized products. So the Z-Amp V3 is a very powerful little stereo amplifier. It's only going to take up so much room here on a kitchen countertop or wherever you might need to try to fit it. We've got this stereo amplifier, a stereo preamp, same thing. This is actually a very high performance device. We've got the ZDAC V2, the DAC and headphone amp, and then as I mentioned, the two lesser expensive Z-Phono preamps that, you know, again, I can't encourage you guys enough. If you're not talking about turntables, you're probably passing up an opportunity for, in some cases, what's going to be a relatively easy add-on sale. And we've got you covered from the phono preamp part of it, just in case there's no phono preamp in his home theater receiver, which a lot of times, of course, there's not. So, you know, Gary, that's really the bulk of the presentation that I have for today. We can go back to, you know, the website, or we can go back to the PowerPoint presentation that I used. Any questions that any of you guys who are listening, any of the integrators who are online and listening, anybody have any questions at all that we can answer for you?
Yeah, I've got it. There's definitely interaction today, buddy.
Cool.
It seems to me most guys are hip, so to speak. They know, and they were ready for you.
Cool.
A few dealers in particular. CJ hit us back a little while ago.
Yeah.
He's got a Halo integrated in his system, and there's a little static fuzz when you adjust the volume. What's your suggestion, best way to remedy that?
So maybe you can ask CJ, or I can ask CJ, is that the original Halo, or is it now the Hint 6? Because one of the upgrades that we did, obviously the Hint 6 is a little bit more expensive, but it does have a more sophisticated volume control in it. If you have a Hint 6 that's exhibiting that issue, that definitely sounds like something's wrong, and we're going to need you to connect you with service at parasound.com. If it's the original, though, that still shouldn't be noisy either. I owned the original Hint before I worked for Parasound for, gosh, I owned that probably for a good 2 to 3 years, and I never experienced that with the volume control. So yeah, the more I think about it, CJ, I would urge you to send a detailed email to service at parasound.com so we can get you an answer.
Good. Thank you very much, CJ. Josh, with Parasound being under the same umbrella as Triad and Control 4, what level of integration can these preamps offer to ease integration and control in comparison with the other brands that directly partner and integrate?
Right. So thank you, Josh, for asking. You know, in the past, we have not done a ton with integration. We do have some of the products. Obviously, you can use, you know, almost all the products, of course, have 12-volt trigger, but in terms of RS-232, not all the products have that. Some of the preamps do. It's really, of course, in the preamp that you would want that, though, in the amplifier, as long as it can turn on with 12-volt trigger, you know, so that when you want it to turn on, it can turn on. We think we've got you pretty well covered there.
I like Michael coming in with the comment with, you know, basically clean the pots. There's a spray for that. I don't know. Thanks. We all have to deal with that. We should all have that spray or readily available.
Yeah.
Hey, my good friend, Jeff Kaplan, I'll read this one off. Is the 275 AB or digital? Same question with the 2125, Class D or Class AB amplification.
Yeah, so all three, actually, the 275, the 2125, and the 2250 are all AB amplifiers. So I was confused at first because you look at the 275 and it's a 1U, you know, it's not a multi-rack, it's 1U, So I just sort of assumed it was a Class D amplifier. But it's not a Class D actually, and it really is a wonderful sounding product. We sell loads of them.
Brad Schwab asked, serial or IP control on the Halo stuff? You might have covered that, but.
Yeah, some of the preamps do have IP control. I'm sorry, some of the preamps, almost all the preamps actually have IR control, but as far as IP protocol, we really haven't delved into that realm as yet. So, yeah.
Good, thank you. Greg, coming in with, do you think Parasound will be offering any Dante capable products in the future? Has that ever crossed your path?
You know, Dante is a fascinating technology, and we do want to keep our eye on Dante as an integration tool. At this point, of course, in the 2-channel realm, there's not much need for it. But as you can see by my presentation, you know, we're really talking about both the home theater and 2-channel realms here. You know, obviously with all of our power amps, that's not as much of an issue because you can simply get the power amp to turn on from whatever is your preamp. But we are going to keep an eye on Dante going into the future. Obviously, we don't offer it at this point.
Sure. Gregory, can you talk how best to integrate with Sonos? I don't know if you're able to answer that with just kind of a vague question like that, but what's the experience so far?
Well, we do see people using our amplifiers a lot of times in Sonos systems because, you know, Sonos, I think, has done a tremendous job with convenience and making it easy for the customer to use Sonos, but they're not necessarily coming from the same audiophile kind of background that we are. So we do see a lot of our customers using, you know, Parasound amplifiers, for example, to power the outdoor speakers in the Sonos system and that sort of thing.
Here's a routing question, again from CJ. What's the best way to get a summed mono signal with these amps? Splitter from the source into right mono?
Well, so many of our amps, CJ, you can actually just switch over to mono. You know, and again, without going through every single one of them, but you can kind of check it out for if there's particular ones once we get off the webinar. Because we got all that information available to you on the website. But so many of our amplifiers, we provide a mono switch. Obviously, if it's an amp that we have that doesn't provide a mono switch, yeah, then yes, a Y splitter, you know, would be the right way to do it for a summed mono signal.
Cameron, I imagine you're an AllNet client there. When will products be available? So, you know, we've all put in our initial orders. They are shipping. I know at Volutone, I should be seeing that within days, if not already. So just keep your eyes on that. If you need any help with pricing, that will be coming out from our marketing teams all within the next week, starting for most likely you'll see pricing going out to the masses on our September circulars. You know, it'll be out there. So hang tight on that.
One of the customers looks like he's saying, what's the use case for a preamp versus a receiver? The way I think of it always is that a preamp and a receiver, the preamp section is built into every receiver, but what the preamp lacks is the power amp section, and of course, in some cases, also the tuner section. So, you know, let's take just for example, the two products we looked at, the 200 pre and the 200 integrated. The 200 integrated is a fabulous value at $11.95. You have 110 watts per side, which is more than enough for many people and many speakers, but you might want substantially more power than that. And to me, that would be the use case for when you go with the preamp and then pick whichever one of the beefy power amps that we have, you know, versus getting the integrated amplifier. Hopefully that takes care of your question. Yeah.
Jason was asking, did the Zone Master 650 go away?
The Zone Master 650 did go away. We kind of got one of those surprises out of the blue where a key component of our Zone Master 250, 450, 650, and 1250 suddenly went away. I mean, we literally kind of got an email one day, we're not going to be able to build any more of these things. There's a part that's just no longer available. So we had to, like, real quick do some engineering. And actually, because that 12-channel amp I showed you, the ZM12, we do more business in the 12-channel amp than any of the other three. So the 12-channel amp, the ZM12, is already out on the market. We will see relatively soon, sometime this late summer and fall, the replacements for ZM250 and 450. But we elected so far not to make a 650 simply because really, if you put a 250 and a 450 together, you've got the performance of a 650. Certainly, if our customers demand a 650 from us, we'll simply build, you know, a ZM6 so that you have that as well. But we didn't sell nearly as many of those as we did the ZM, you know, 2 and 4, and then straight up to the 12 channel for the good sized ones.